The U.S. added 143,000 jobs in January, fewer than economists expected, while the overall employment rate inched down to 4 points from 4% to 4.1%. The black unemployment rate rose to 6.2%. For black men, it jumped to 6.9%. Black women stayed at 5.4%. Morgan Harper, the director of policy and advocacy at the American Economic Liberties Project, joins us from Columbus, Ohio. And Morgan, I'm sure those black men who were just trumpeting Trump, wonder what they got to say now.
Well, I mean, yeah, that is the biggest jump that we saw in these numbers is black men unemployment. The other group that we saw jump was Asian Americans. As I say every month, Roland, when we talk about these numbers, it's important to note that it is just a spot in time. So we have to kind of see if this ends up being a trend. But certainly it is saying something that black men were the only group to see this high of a jump among all the different populations that are being surveyed.
And so what were they expecting the job number to be? Was exceed 200,000? And so what happened?
Well, it's not entirely clear. I mean, yeah, so they did have to revise down some of the job numbers from the end of this past year, but it did seem like this number wasn't too far out of line from what people were expecting, and the market's kind of reacting accordingly. And so, I think the conventional wisdom here was if we were seeing numbers that were suggesting job additions of under 100,000, that probably would have been cause for a lot of alarm. Or if there were more than 200,000 jobs, then that also would have felt out of whack from what people were expecting. But based on this number in the 140,000 range, it's on par with what people were expecting. We did see also wage growth, but it's certainly not a sign of the economy is amazingly strong and we have nothing to continue to watch. I think there's going to be a lot of people that are going to have to, myself included, that are going to continue to follow these numbers very closely, because there's obviously a lot of uncertainty that has entered the whole economy, as well as we have a new president who is making changes to economic policy pretty much every day. And so, how businesses react to that, how consumers react to that in terms of their comfort level with spending in the face of that uncertainty and just flurry of activity kind of remains to be seen. I think the other thing to note that's interesting here, and we've talked about this a bit before, is among the sectors that are driving growth, they usually are the same sectors, healthcare, or at least for the past few months and a couple of years, healthcare, government jobs, and especially calling out that government job category. Now, of course, there's lots of different levels of government, but seeing some of the early moves from the administration to also limit the federal workforce, it'll be interesting. And it's too quick for these numbers to reflect how that might be having an impact, but it'll be interesting to continue to monitor this and see how the job growth data is impacted by these types of federal policy changes that are happening at the government level there.
Just curious, how did Fox News and Fox Business respond to this report? Because, under Biden-Harris, it would be, oh my God, it's alarming that it was less than expected.
Are you asking me, or are you showing a clip?
No, I'm asking you. What did you see any response?
No, I didn't catch that.
I'm just curious to how the right wing, who lost their mind even when numbers were adjusted downward under Biden-Harris, how they operated. So I was just curious if you saw any of that.
I haven't seen that, but I do think you're right that. I guess I could imagine perhaps what the coverage was there, very likely to be less critical than anything that was happening in the Biden administration. And look, I mean, I do think that it's pretty typical at the beginning of a presidential administration that, not just Fox News, but a lot of different outlets are, going to see how things develop and give it a little bit of time. There's a new, president in office elected and how that all plays out. I think it's fair to say that what we've been seeing in the first couple of weeks in this administration are pretty unprecedented, just with the flurry of activity. Take, for example, another topic that we've discussed, trade. I mean, to both impose a tariff and then also remove that tariff in the span of a week. And today, for example, deciding to remove one of those tariffs after having a meeting with the CEO of a company that is directly impacted by that tariff. This is not what we would normally expect from an economic policy team or from the president.
So I'm curious here. Today's report reflects the whole month of January, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, so which also is a part of the Trump folks as well. I mean, I just love how they're trying to spin this by trying to blame it on Biden Harris. That to me was what I find to be hilarious. But again, that's what they do. They will never ever actually accept blame. In fact, go to my iPod. This was Fox Business. Today's jobs report reveals the Biden economy was far worse than anyone thought and underscores the necessity of President Trump's pro-growth policies. And then they claim that they have been plugging in government jobs left and right to make the numbers look better. But the reality is the growth that we saw was actually in healthcare and retail.
Yeah. And again, look, I mean, this is going to be the time for a new administration to show they have presented a vision for the country of what's necessary to spur growth, just like you saw in that statement. And we'll see how that pans out. I think that it's, again, fair to say, I mean, this isn't a partisan observation, that there are a lot of people in the administration that are very tightly connected to Wall Street, big finance, and they have very different policy priorities from the average American, and certainly very different economic situation. So, today also we're seeing attacks on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, an agency that's returned billions of dollars to consumers all over the country. It has a budget of about $800 million, and it's not entirely clear, even if your goal is government efficiency, why that would be a target. But setting that aside, I mean, this is an agency that's actually putting money in people's pockets that they can then spend, buy things, spur the economy, and continue to keep businesses in good shape. So
yeah, but the problem with that is that they hold big business accountable, and Republicans actually hate that. That's why they've never liked it. They always wanted to get rid of it because they don't like being held accountable. And so, and the last thing they want, these businesses, they don't want to see workers, Americans, consumers being taken care of. It's also why even Democratic billionaires wanted to get rid of Lena Khan at the Federal Trade Commission. And so, again, whenever the money people on the Democrat and the Republican side are agreeing to get rid of somebody, they probably are doing a great job.
Well, and here's an interesting thing there too, Roland. I don't know if you've been seeing some of the observations from Steve Bannon, certainly one of the main leaders of MAGA movement. And he's been out there saying he doesn't agree with the big tech billionaires that seem to be running, including Elon Musk, that seem to be having not even disproportionate amount of influence. They are actually side by side in implementing the president's agenda, though not technically members of the government, and supports and thought that Lena Khan should have had more power. So, yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I think you're exactly right that we see on both sides of the aisle the corruption and the corruptive impact of money in politics and policy making. But then we're also starting to see these splinters where a lot of different types of folks are starting to call out some of this influence and actually holding some of these large businesses accountable that have been profiting enormously at the expense of the average worker, business owner, and a lot of communities. And ultimately now we're seeing the effects on democracy too.
Hello, I'm Isaac Hayes III, founder and CEO of Fanbase. And right now, we're accepting investors in our $17 million round to revolutionize the future of social media. Today, for just $399, you can own 60 shares of stock in Fanbase at $665 a share. Go to startengine.com/Fanbase and invest today. While the big platforms have grown too massive and disconnected from their users, Fanbase is building a platform where creators and users truly come first. We've already raised $8.6 million from everyday investors who believe in this vision, and now you can join them. This is your chance to invest in a social media tech company with over 1 million users that is disrupting media by allowing anyone to reach all of their following and monetize their content from day one. The market is changing, big platforms are failing to serve their users, and Fanbase is stepping up to fill the gap. Don't wait until it's too late. Invest now. Invest for yourself and your future. Go to startengine.com/fanbase and own the future of social media.